You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I'm your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com, click on podcasts, and you'll find the Batman Podcast Network that has a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also love to frolic and other nerdy subjects that we all like to talk about. Yeah, there we go. Let's say that. The Batman Book Club is also on Patreon. If you like what's going on with the show and you want to help support the show, keep the generators running in the Wayne Manor study, just go to patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Now, thank you for listening to episode 120, Joker. Joining me for the first time on this show, a gentleman who I got to meet in person a few months back. He arrived. He was the hero we needed at the time, and he saved us to make a mighty beer run to the Kroger down the street. It is one Sir Trey Jackson. Trey, welcome to the Batman Book Club.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to provide the essentials on that trip because we did need it.
Yes, I'm referring to what I've referred to a lot on here of the Batman watch party down in Texas earlier this year that all of us got together. And yeah, we got back from a late night cookout, and Trey had just arrived at the hotel and we wanted to hang out, but we had nothing to drink. And Trey said, I have a car to the Batmobile. So we were like, hey, Trey, awesome. Let's go. So that's this is the first time I've got to talk to you in person since that weekend, which was a blast. And that weekend is when I told you that I wanted to have you come on the show if you would accept the invite, and you said yes, and you told me your pick and all that stuff. I never forgot you, Trey. I promise.
Well, I really appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
Yes. Before we get to that, though, I have to ask you, since this is your first time on the show, Trey Jackson, what is your favorite Batman story?
Well, I knew this question was coming. So I went back and revisited two of my favorites. So I went back and revisited Arkham Asylum and Dark Victory because I was trying to pick, which one do I have to go with? I think if we're being technical, my favorite story is probably Dark Victory.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like the vibes in Arkham Asylum, but I love the story in Dark Victory, especially the inclusion of Robin.
Nice. Does it still get you every time you read Dark Victory that you sort of, I don't even know if you want to say misremember how long you get into the book until Robin shows up?
Yeah, because he's right there on the cover.
Yeah.
so you think he's going to show up sooner, but they do plant seeds pretty early on that,
Sure.
Batman's feeling pretty lonesome. He needs someone to, actually talk to and come alongside him. So I think it builds up to him pretty organically.
Yeah.
And I do love the few pages where it's mirroring Bruce's flashback to his childhood and then Robin going through the same thing, talking to Alfred.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can see him now. Beautiful
Good stuff.
art from the great and missed Tim Sale. Oh,
yes.
R.I.P.
Yes.
That's a good call. I do understand many people are probably The Long Halloween might be the Ohio State of the Batman comic world, and that people get sick and tired of hearing all about The Long Halloween on this show, talking to you, Paul Herman, or by favorite Batman stories being picked, and it's always The Long Halloween. So I respect your pick because episode 50 last year, where we did our top 10 favorite Batman stories, Dark Victory was on there, and it wasn't that far behind The Long Halloween. So I love that story. Our pal Garrett Grev loves that story, as he was on this show. The first time he was on the show, we talked about Dark Victory. So
yeah. I remember the episode.
You do. Well done.
I'm married to a beautiful Ohio State fan, so I won't comment on a comparison. But I will say that I love how Dark Victory has all the same kinds of twists and turns and intrigue, but it incorporates Robin as well. So that's kind of what puts it at the top for me.
Gotcha. That's excellent. I think I regret nothing in bringing up Ohio State, other than the fact I almost threw up in my mouth saying their name twice. But yeah, I don't know. That's a fine pick. I appreciate that pick. And I think you debating between Dark Victory and Arkham Asylum has me like, I'm surprised by you, Trey Jackson.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And I'll get into that as soon as we get into the book of choice, and I'll explain all of that. So let's go ahead and let's just dive into Joker. Now, this story, written by Brian Azzarello with art by Lee Bermejo, was released in 2008 in a hardcover. It's since been released in a trade paperback, a deluxe hardcover. It was part of an absolute edition package. It's available on DC Universe Infinite, and it is on my favorite app of all time, Hoopla. Trey, for this episode, what version of Joker did you read?
I have, and I'm showing you now, the Black Label re-release.
Yeah.
It's actually a bit of a cautionary tale. So I bought the original hardcover back in 2008, and I loaned it out to someone. And this is why I have to come to the library and learn from the librarian about how to properly loan out your books so that you get them back. So that has been, I hope whoever has it is enjoying it. But for this one, I have the Black Label re-release. So
never rub another man's rhubarb.
Exactly.
Well, that's too bad. I don't like that, friend. Whoever took it, how dare they?
If I remembered who they were, I might go after them.
Let's send out a search party. Let's track them down. I read my original bought on first day hardcover. That is, because I will brag about this until the day I die. It's not. Oh, it's hard to see here, but it is signed by Lee Bermejo himself. More on that later.
You should brag about that.
This is surprisingly the only version of this that I have. As much of like the absolutes that I love, I hesitated on getting the absolute edition, which it was partnered up, packaged with Luther, Man of Steel, also by Azzarello and Bermejo. And yeah, I hesitated on it, and the next thing I knew, everybody was sold out. And so now, sell a kidney and you can buy it online. And
yeah,
I don't think I'm ready to do that yet.
Well, the autograph makes up for it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That makes me feel like I'm walking on water. Do you remember the first time that you read this story? And I don't need exact day, time, where you were, but as far as, first release, couple years down the road, etc.
I picked it up in 2008 when it was released. I remember it seemed like it caught people kind of by surprise about how big a deal it was, but in retrospect, I'm not sure why, because The Dark Knight had come out earlier that year. So anything to do with Batman, especially that was quality, was going to get a lot of attention. So yeah, I remember reading about it and reading when it was coming out and heading to the bookstore and picking it up. I don't know if it was the day of release, but not long after, maybe within the first week, and reading it right then and then revisiting it a couple of times. And yeah, it's quite an experience to read this book.
Yeah. I remember I did, because this was, as I've referred to on here, I was making my own money at this point. I actually had multiple comic shops where I was living at this point. And so I was at the comic shop every week, and I had seen that this was coming, and it's like, oh, this is a self-contained like Batman comic book story, not just a single issue. Like, this is a full story. And okay, it's called Joker. And at this point, I know that I had become familiar with Bermejo from the two exclusive, illustrations he did for BOF
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
the Joker and the Two-Face ones.
Yep.
So I thought, wow, man, that's his twisted style. That's awesome. I don't think I'd read Luthor yet. I don't think I'd seen much of Bermejo's stuff at that point, but I just knew it's a self-contained story. So I think I was there day of release and I bought it and then came home and read it right away. And we'll get into my feelings on that.
Yeah.
And this is where, just like I said a couple minutes ago with the Arkham Asylum comment, Trey Jackson, you are a very kind soul. You're a very, as Garrett would say, a learned gentleman. Meeting you down in Texas and us talking and stuff, you're very calm, cool, collected. And you really caught me off guard when I asked if you would like to come on the show, and you said yes, and you said Joker. Because now it's like, whoa. Is there more to Trey Jackson than we all know, people? So my question is, why Joker?
Well, I hope I didn't catch you off guard by wanting to come on the show. That was certainly never
No, not at all.
Honestly, there's a very boring practical reason that I can share
okay.
first. It's one that was not on your list of books you'd covered yet. And
Okay.
I was kind of surprised at that. So I was like, okay, this is a book that I have been familiar with ever since it was released and feel like I could, talk about it at length. So there's that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this book is a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does exactly what it sets out to do and does it really well. And it's kind of, it's tough to read through in the way that it's trying to be. Like that's its mission, is you're reading through it and you're just like absolutely disgusted with this person. And you are intrigued by what makes them tick and do the things they do. And you're following it along and wondering, when is Batman going to show up?
Yeah.
What kind of, city is this that they live in? And it's, I don't say this as a criticism. Okay. It is kind of hard to get through, but I appreciate that because I think it is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So I love Bermejo's artwork. I've always loved him. I think everything he does is just incredibly striking, detailed, wonderful to look at. The story, it does have some weak points, but like I said, overall, I think it accomplishes exactly what it wants to accomplish, and I respect that.
Mm-hmm. You wanted a challenging discussion, and you knew that there was no way I would say no. And it was a Lee Bermejo book, I think, summarize it well. And I think that'll lead into our discussion for sure. And I do think the book, it's pretty damn dirty.
Yes.
Like it's a very dirty book. Yes. But like you said too, like that's what they were trying to do. And not, I don't think, exploitative. I don't think that was their approach. It was like, let's just see how gross we can make it. There was a point in them going as far as that they did with the Joker. And I'm excited to talk, like to go through the evolution of this story and hit on some of those points. Because I have some questions for you too. Because I don't know how many times I've read this book. It's been quite a few. And I think there are still some things in which I think many people would say that's a good thing. There are still some parts of it that I don't have figured out. Mm-hmm. And so to ask a professor of your stature some of these questions, maybe shed a little bit of light on this. And so I think a little bit of backstory, and Lee Bermejo and Brian Azzarello, they haven't been shy in talking about the origin of Joker, in that Luthor, Man of Steel, came out a few years prior to this. I don't know exactly what year, if it was 2005, 2006. And I think it was like a 6-issue series. And for they didn't get specific on, but there's like a myriad of reasons that became a difficult book to produce. And I think they both kind of said our friendship is more important than us like maybe clashing by working together. So let's vote we don't work together and let's remain friends. And then flash forward to, I think they said it was like a San Diego Comic-Con, and there's like a big dinner at a restaurant or something, and Bermejo and Azzarello were at the bar, and apparently DC had wanted them to do a whole series of these books on the Justice League supervillains. So they already did Lex Luthor, and then they were just talking back and forth about, who even are they? And they just kept coming back to Joker. So then they started to talk more about, well, if we did do it, we could do this. If we could, and it just snowballed into an idea. And then Joker was born. So it's interesting also because it was supposed to almost like, it's weird in reading different snippets. It was supposed to be a continuation of what Luthor kind of was, in the sense of standalone stories of these villains, but it was also supposed to then, the idea was launch a Joker verse where they were doing Batman villains in this position. And then in one of I think it might've been the deluxe edition, or maybe the Art of Lee Bermejo book, where there's an image of Joker like that Bermejo drew, and it said it was supposed to be for like the second issue of the Joker verse series or something like that. And then Brian Azzarello, well, another part that's funny is in one of his introductions for, I think it was in maybe it was in the trade paperback you have, or maybe it was the recent deluxe edition, that this was actually going to continue. Like, so it was Lex Luthor : Man of Steel, and this was going to be Joker : Dark Knight. And then I guess they went ahead and just and nixed that. So there we are. There's a little bit of backstory on that. Now, my one rule. This isn't, you got close, and tonight you're going to break your one rule. This is not a Batman starring book. Now, Trey, I know you know the rules of this show. For a book to apply and be covered, Batman has to have importance to the story. Given a book that came out after Joker, I think that emphasized the importance of Batman in this book. So I'll allow it.
Well, thank you.
But we don't have to talk about Batman for a bit, because we can get through the whole story of Joker. And we are going to spoil the hell out of this book. So if you haven't read it and you want to, press pause, come back later after you read it. Now take it away, Trey Jackson. What do you want to talk about with Joker?
Spoilers for a 14-year-old book.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was looking at my copy of Luthor. I believe 2005 is when
2005. Okay.
When it came out. Yeah. And the Luthor subtitle was Man of Steel. I had read that they originally, were going to go with Joker Dark Knight, and because of the movie, DC was like, that would be a little confusing. So,
sure. Okay.
Yeah, but I read that too.
Makes sense.
So let's see where to start. I guess we should just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. So right away, we'll probably do this a lot.
Sure.
Bermejo's art is just phenomenal.
Let's just go with the main guy here. Lee Bermejo is incredible.
Yes.
If you've ever listened to an episode of this show, you know where I stand on that. And if this is your first time, Lee Bermejo is my favorite comic book artist. Current, as in living, R.I.P. to Norm Brayfogle, who is also with Lee Bermejo as my favorite artist, comic book artist, in which I got to have for episode 100. Lee Bermejo was on this show, and it's all connected, Trey, because the first professional artist he ever met was Norm Brayfogle. And I was like, what? Oh my God, it's all connected. Mind's blown.
Of course it is. It's comic book.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. Yes. His art is fantastic. I'm going to brag again. Thanks to Bill on Batman on Film, I got to meet Lee in person in 2019. at a comic shop in Chicago and got to have a one-on-one with him, which was amazing. And with that interview, I did bring up the fact, I think there was a small snippet in the Art of Lee Bermejo book talks about his influence of an artist, and it almost looks like he used in that, almost it seemed like pixels to create images, like specifically on Lex Luthor himself. And that I feel like was the first tease. And then in Joker, he goes, I guess, 2 steps further even, and inserts images of very realistic, like painted realistic, and it's in and out from that look to I don't even want to say like a more comic book style, but a little bit more animated, not as realistic style. And so the thing I said, and I'm sorry, I'll read this and then I'll shut up. I did ask him about that, and I said that I think the biggest evolution of your artwork between like Joker and Batman Noel is that basically this step in Joker was in and out of this realistic look and Noel from beginning to end was this realistic style. And then from then on, it seems like what he does is the realistic style. And he'd said, I'd started trying that style on a book called Global Frequency years before that. And the reason this is like that is because I had this theory that I would control the rhythm of how people read the story. So if something was a little bit more rendered and painted, I thought that maybe they would focus on that image a little longer. So it would create a rhythm for the storytelling. And then when I finished that, the thing I learned was I don't want to control the rhythm. I want to let the reader do that, So then that's the reason I did the story entirely in one style, Batman Noel in the one style. I don't want to tell you how to read the book or try to control anything other than just the basic storytelling. So that's an interesting experiment that he went on. And then like a self-realization too of I don't want to tell you what to think. I want you to do it however you do. And I think that is a very artistic approach. And I do take a lot of appreciation for, movies, TV shows, comics, novels and stuff that do that, where it doesn't provide you all the answers. It's, well, what do you think happened? How did you take it? And in the end, those, for a lot of people, that can be frustrating. But then for just as many people, it can be, well, it's always going to be a winner because what happens then is in your head. It's your, like, it's almost like it becomes your story in a sense of you decided the fate.
Yeah. And that's true of this book too. I mean, there's a lot of things that, and we can get into it as we go through it, but some things that are kind of open to interpretation about which way it actually goes and how to actually read the scene. So I'm listening to Bermejo talk on this show and elsewhere. Another artist that he's mentioned as influential is Norman Rockwell, who's one of my favorite artists. Not a comic book, although he did for years did magazine covers.
Yeah.
But for anyone, if you're familiar with Rockwell, I mean, if you're not, take a minute, look his stuff up. You'll recognize
you know who Norman Rockwell is. Even if you don't know,
Yeah. But Rockwell had this great way of portraying a mostly realistic style, but it was kind of like hyper realistic. And he had a way of using a picture to tell like a complete story. There's just, and you had to do that with your designing magazine covers. So Bermejo kind of picks up on that. His use of texture and detail really kind of implies like how a character might be moving through the scene, and how characters in the background are moving, and it's really immersive. And that's just, to me, the art is just the star of the book. Honestly, it's why I keep coming back to it as often as I do, because we've like we've said, the story itself can be kind of on purpose difficult to get through. It's a very harsh story, harsh reality that they're living in, but the artwork is just, you don't ever get tired of going back to it. At least I don't.
No. Preach.
Yeah.
You know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I revisit this all the time.
So I guess another thing to notice about this book, if you got a chance, go back and reread Luther before getting through this book, and notice kind of the similarities, but also the differences. Luthor is very much from Lex Luthor's perspective. There's a lot of internal monologue. There's a lot of like reasoning out to himself why he's doing the things that he's doing. And it's really exactly how they sold it as a character study of Lex Luthor, who he is and why he does this. When they go to do that with Joker, I think very intentionally they said, we can't get into his head the same way we can with Luthor. We have to do this from an outsider's perspective, someone who's close to him, to kind of see him day to day and see what he's up to, but still as mystified by some of his actions as a typical comic book reader normally is. So that's one major difference from Luthor to this book. It is a character study of Joker, but you can't really delve too deep into his psychological states without ruining some of the mystery and the intrigue of the character. Because that's like part of his allure, is you don't ever know what he's going to do or why he's going to do it.
Totally agree. And that's a great point, because in somewhere, I think they both had even mentioned with Luthor, it was different because it's almost trying to make you feel sympathetic or empathetic to Luthor, because what he's doing, he feels he is the right thing. And so how do we get on his side and understand this without the story being told through his perspective? So I think they accomplished a goal there. And then, exactly. I think they'd mentioned of Joker is not somebody that we should be rooting for. And yet people continuously root for the Joker.
Yeah.
We can't get in his mind because he's not as effective that way. And like you said, with somebody close to him. So then the perfect startup point for this is Johnny Frost, which is a great running gag that I love throughout the whole thing.
Yes, very funny.
Of what's my name? Johnny Frost. Well, Johnny Frost. And then it's Johnny, the whole story. I love that.
Yes.
But this guy, he is one who is like, oh man, I want to be just like the Joker. It'd be so cool to be like the Joker, get that respect like the Joker. Like, it's cool. The Joker's cool. And I think that is not to be hyperbolic, like that's a brilliant starting point for the story.
Yeah.
Is somebody that close dealing with him. And then you see this, like, I don't even know the correct way to try and describe it, other than it's not the story evolving per se. It's like it's getting darker and darker and darker, and a point of no return. Yeah. And this guy kind of did it to himself, and because he idolized the Joker and he wants to be him so bad.
And it's almost like it's a sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle indictment of people who do root for the Joker and idolize the Joker.
Yeah.
And funny enough, they've said multiple times that the design and the inspiration for this book was not related at all to the Dark Knight movie that had come out that summer, but there was a lot of idolizing of the Joker at that time. So this is a really interesting, point in history for this book to come in.
It is, because we all loved Heath Ledger as Joker, and it's like, wait, but should you really be rooting for the Joker in the movie? No, you shouldn't. But wait, I laughed at some of the things he said, and also some of the points he made I think are valid.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Am I in trouble? Like, like what's wrong with me? And so for us to say that I like this book Joker, it's like, what's wrong with me? But as having that, seeing this through the eyes of Johnny Frost, that really, I don't know, it's like they hit all the points that I think that are needed for for the Joker. And of course, there's different interpretations. This might be like the darkest interpretation of the Joker that I can't think of one that tops it.
Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't think that like I'm all ears to, I'm cycling through as many stories as I can right now in my head. And I mean, the Arkham Asylum Joker kind of was, but I mean, in it, he didn't really do that much. That was really depraved,
There
And-
were some flashback scenes in Arkham Knight showing what he did to Jason Todd that were
Sure.
like kind of
Okay.
visceral, but even that's I think that's more impactful because it's a video game. But
Sure.
as far as like stuff he actually does, yeah, I don't know that it gets worse than what's in this book here.
What's in this one for sure. There's kind of, I like the inclusion as he makes his, because we'll circle back to it, but I mean, the comparison of Joker being a disease is brought up and kind of bookends the book.
Yeah.
But he does visit other known characters in Gotham. Very grounded takes of Killer Croc, Penguin, Harvey Dent, Riddler, and Harley Quinn, who I don't think has a line of dialogue.
He
written.
doesn't, and that's something that I kind of wanted to bring up. So, Azzarello, Bermejo, they're talking about, let's make a book where we explore Joker from a psychological perspective, but we can't do it too much. We can't do it in his head. So let's have another character do it for us. You've got Dr. Harleen Quinzel right there, trained psychologist. You don't have her do it. Instead, you give that job to someone who's pretty naive and pretty, doesn't realize how in over his head he is.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any thoughts about that narrative choice just from the get-go? Like relegating her, like it doesn't, she's there as like, someone for Joker to like turn to in a moment of despair, but she doesn't serve any kind of purpose in a book designed to explore him from a psychological angle, even though that seems like such a natural fit.
I guess I didn't give that much thought, but I can't remember every time I read this, but I mean, this time in reading it, this is the first I'd really thought about in my memory of, oh wait, I don't think Harley has any dialogue.
No.
Interesting. So then it does become a breaking down. Okay, so what's her purpose in the story? I mean, surprising probably everyone, she's a stripper. That was kind of like, oh, okay. But then she's full on right there supporter of Joker as soon as he's released. Standing by his side through everything, and there's no conflict between the two on their relationship.
Yeah.
She's the supporter, and there's no abusiveness that like we saw in the animated series and sometimes in comics from their old relationship either. So she's just there as his, while Johnny thinks he's the right hand man, it's kind of like Harley kind of is actually, because she comes through in important moments. And like you said, there for him in a moment of despair, plays dress up at the zoo and reveals herself there at the end, and is very crucial in that scene. And she's in that scene a lot, but yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do more with her. To impact the story with what they were going for, but I don't think it's a missed opportunity, but I do think if they would have included her more, it would have only benefited too. So that's a political answer of yes and no.
I don't know if it's a missed opportunity either, because I think that the book is, like we said earlier, is supposed to be from the perspective of someone who idolizes a monster and needs to get put in their place for it. And if you give that role to Harley, you take away his layer of being a naive, moron along for the ride. I think it was intentional. It's just something that I didn't really notice until reading it this time around. It's like, you want to explore him from a psychological angle, and you don't use like the most famous character associated with him who could very easily do that. Not that you should have, but I think
Sure.
you would have had to have chosen specifically not to.
Uh-huh.
One other thing, this may not mean anything at all, but her stage routine, it looks like she's actually putting her suit on rather than a typical stage routine. I don't know if I'm just like misreading it, but
No, I think you're right. I mean, she hops up on the stage with just the pants on, and then it does start to look more like, then comes the mask, then disappears, and then when she comes back, it's the full Harley Quinn suit that we kind of all know and recognize. The classic Harley Quinn suit, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I may be reading too much into it, but I do wonder if that's kind of like, it seems like a theme of this book is the way we present ourselves appearance wise, and kind of the things Joker actually, has a little bit to say about that to Batman when he shows up at the end. Just the way that people intentionally present themselves and what they might be trying to hide and what they're actually, revealing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, just an interesting note there.
Speaking of character inclusions, I think also in that proposal from Azzarello, he included initially that ventriloquist, Scarface was also an idea of a villain to include. I think that's one that would have been interesting. I can't say that I miss it, that it's not in there, because Scarface is, to me, it's, oh hey, that's Scarface. If it's just like an Easter egg in the background or something, I don't necessarily like, even in the animated series, and then I think in the Batman itself, like I don't go to the Scarface episodes.
Yeah,
really like, oh my gosh, I want to watch one episode, Scarface. It's like, oh okay, Scarface, yeah, sure, that's fine. It's so I can't say that I miss him. I like the inclusion of the other ones and their looks of the other one. It's like Killer Croc and Abner.
Yes, Abner.
Their appearances don't fully surprise me. Riddler's totally surprised me. And then I think Riddler, even in one of the variants that Bermejo did for Detective Comics recently, one of the final ones, I thought that his Riddler looked very similar from this story to that cover.
He didn't originally, correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't really want to include Riddler, or he said he didn't particularly enjoy Riddler as a character. Am I getting that right?
Azzarello or Bermejo?
Bermejo.
I don't know why I asked who said that, because I don't know. I've never heard that. So are you making stuff up, Trey? Oh my gosh.
I hope not.
Start a website. Headline.
I feel like somebody somewhere that I read recently said that they didn't love Riddler and they were not sure what to do with him.
Gotcha.
And for this book, making one leg, limp as an excuse for him to actually have a cane, was something. Yeah. And maybe they said something about how he traditionally wears a disguise, and they weren't sure, like, all these other characters wear, suits and ties, and here's this guy who normally wears spandex. What do we do with him? Like, how do we turn that into, more of a traditional, walk around on the street look? And that's what they came up with. I actually love the Riddler's look in this book. I thought it was really, I loved it the first time I saw it, and I was like, wow, I hope that this is some kind of inspiration for a future adaptation. I think this is just a really striking, cool way to present the character. Not that I don't love the Frank Gorshin spandex, but
sure. I think it's good. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely not my least favorite by any means either. To me, though, it's green. He's got question marks.
That's all you need.
That's the Riddler.
In
the end, that's the Riddler to me, and he does ask a riddle. Yeah. So I don't know. He's 3 for 3 on their interpretation there with him.
Yeah.
I feel like, so what's interesting to note is I think some influences in which I haven't watched it, influences that Bermejo had with this Joker. He brought up Chris Cunningham in the music video Window Licker by Aphex Twin. I haven't watched it, but I do see like just like an image of it. I can kind of see. Also, he said, which probably many know, the Black Dahlia case that he'd read up and seen, crime scene photos of Elizabeth Short and that, and the cut face and the smile, and that was impressionistic on him. And then Christopher Walken in King of New York, which I've never seen that either. Those were, I think, what he's mentioned, Bermejo's mentioned, those were like his influences on creating this version of the Joker. I think the motivation of the story also makes total sense. It's almost, you could break it down a little bit of, as they're talking about the story, okay, what's the baseline? What's the Joker doing here? Oh, it seems almost like while he was away this last time, Gotham moved on without him.
Yeah.
And so now he's out, like he's back to kind of claim his territory, but then also just cause chaos, because that's kind of his thing. In which,
chaos is his territory.
Yeah. And the fact that Arkham let him out is pretty baffling. I'm trying to find, I forget where he said, because I thought he even said at one point too, of like, there isn't any more crazy or something, along those lines of.
Yeah, he says,
any.
because I think that's when he met Croc for the first, or went back to Croc. That might have been it. Or wait, maybe this is when he first saw Abner. But yeah, someone asked him, like, how'd you get out? And he just says, they say I'm not crazy anymore.
Yeah. And what? No wonder it's a revolving door in and out of Arkham. If that, Joker, you're not crazy. Why don't you go ahead and have a night out on the town?
Yeah.
But I mean, he's going back. You see at first like a motivation and talking with Croc. He shows empty pockets, and so basically he needs the muscle, which is Croc. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting is, so then there's this guy Monty, who we were introduced to at the very beginning of the story, because he said Joker's getting out, and Monty doesn't want to go get him, and that's where Johnny Frost says, "I'll do it." And they end up back at the Grin and Barrett strip club, where Monty's at there, and we see him now all sucking up to the Joker and everything, and he gets taken to the back with Harley and Joker, and he comes out and he ends up skinned alive in a very horrifying shot.
Yes.
But like Joker with him later with the guy Johnny Bang Bang, how he treats Johnny Frost, and he even says with Frost of like how predictable and like boring he is. Mm-hmm. And I think he finds genuine humor and entertainment out of Killer Croc and Penguin, and then later on with Riddler. And Harvey Dent is a little bit back and forth, but the fact that he left Harvey alive goes to show too of like, you do entertain me. Yeah. That's why I think that's why he never kills any of the Batman's rogues, I feel, because by them being messed up, he loves how kind of entertaining they are. They're pure entertainment. Whereas all these other low level crooks are, very basic. And so therefore it's just boring, and they mean nothing to him, which is why he gets out of that meeting with Johnny Bang Bang. And as they go out, and Johnny Frost even tells them of like, that one will bust, did it? I'll be right back. And then goes in, hey, Johnny. And then you see bang, bang. Mm-hmm. And there's some dark humor to that. And then it is like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing. But that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Johnny Bang Bang wasn't a good guy either. So whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, all the other villains, like they are entertaining to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he just uses them any way he sees fit. Croc is his muscle, and Croc seems to be okay with that. Abner is bullied into laundering his money. Riddler, he has Riddler steal something. Yeah, it's just, again, it's the mystery of why this guy does what he does. He just revels in the chaos and the anarchy of everything. I do remember hearing Bermejo say this, that he liked, I wonder if he even said it on this show. That would be interesting. But he liked to think of Batman's villains as like representing different kinds of crime. So Joker kind of was the embodiment of just random senseless crime, whereas Two-Face, represents more like corrupt institutions, crime at like a political, level.
Yeah.
Penguin, in this book represents crimes in the financial sector, blackmail and laundering money, things like that. Riddler can personify, crimes at the, stealing of information, using it for blackmail, things like that. So you see kind of them play those roles here, and Joker is just, using it all to amuse himself, basically. He's just going through the city and reclaiming what's his, but just in a thoroughly disgusting and disturbing way.
Yeah. So, I mean, he does take out the Johnny Bang Bang. This was a drinking game of Johnny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'd be hammered. But with some of the stuff, so like, skinning Monty, he takes, he seems sort of bummed that the bank robbery, nobody died.
Yeah.
Johnny Bang Bang, he kills him. Later, the older couple, that's where I think that, I mean, prior to that, he's kind of, the story had taken a bit of a turn, I feel, and it's got a lot darker, and okay, it's not funny now. And that scene definitely, was like a punctuation on that point. Well, I guess prior to that, even, which I think we can talk about here in a second, and breaks into an apartment, and Johnny Frost says, "What are we doing?" And jokes, "I said shut up." And then you see it's an old couple in bed, and they're scared. And Johnny says, "Who are these people?" And Joker says, "Who
cares?"
I mean, the next page is a bloodbath. He's just sitting, laughing, spread out on their bodies. And then you can see too, he's holding a razor that has blood all over, and there's blood all over the place. And it is just kind of like, man, this is, and I mean, Johnny Frost has realized then too, of like, this has gone too far. And
well, and what does he say to Johnny there? He's kind of mentioned it a couple of times in the book at this point, but he says, "I told you never to apologize." Apologies are like the thing he hates the most. And this is where I do think they are kind of peeling the layers back a little bit and giving you a little bit of insight into who he is. I think he does have this in common with Ledger's Joker. He is just completely and totally amoral, which is different from being immoral. Immoral means that you can recognize what's actually right and wrong and you just don't care. I think he goes a step further and says there is no right and wrong to this world. It does not matter. You just do whatever you want to do, and everyone is just kidding themselves, thinking that there is such a thing as being virtuous or caring about other people or anything like that. And he's taken it upon himself to show like, no, it's just all about getting whatever you want, however you can, and entertaining yourself while doing so. And that's why you don't ever,
good point.
That's why you don't ever apologize, because no one ever actually does anything wrong in his eyes, because there is no wrong. There is no right.
It's an interesting to think about. I mean, when you're dead, it's not like you can talk after fact, but if somebody went up and shot and killed him, the ghost of Joker would probably find that hilarious.
Oh yeah.
And I think that always, when they capitalize on that with Batman, is that Batman with Joker is always stuck in that spot, because he's like, it doesn't make any sense why you don't kill me.
Yeah.
But if you kill me, I win. And if you don't kill me, I'm gonna break out and do all this again. So it's hilarious to me. And I think that there is a really, because this is fiction, that's a very interesting thing to explore. And I love that point that you just made about him being amoral and that no apologies. I want to ask you about, because this is part of that, of including him, Harvey Dent. His inclusion in this story. What is his position in this story?
He represents, going back to like him kind of representing the crime at the institutional level. He's kind of stepped in Joker's absence and, taken over some of his territory. And he wants to run things in a certain kind of predictable, not quite as chaotic way, it seems like.
He's free. He's free though.
Yeah.
Like, is that how you take it? He's not like hiding out, because I took of the mansion that he's in. He's going out in a robe and getting a paper in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Harvey's free. Is he a DA again? Just at a different level or something? Or
no, I think he's kind of like, I don't know, he's almost kind of like in the position that someone like the Godfather is in, or in the Batman universe, someone like the Maronis are in, where everything is running smooth. I got my people on the street, like sending me money back. I've got, my kickbacks coming in. It's a whole like well-oiled organization and, a thing that he's set up to run a certain way. And this isn't in the book. This is just me kind of reading into why the Joker might be so angry at him. Because he set it up to just, hum along and keep benefiting from it in a predictable criminal way. And Joker's just come back and is ready to just blow it all up.
It's funny that you said the Godfather, because I was going to ask you if you got Godfather vibe with that police officer that was shot in the head by Johnny Frost and they hang from the tree.
Yeah.
I totally got Godfather vibes.
Yeah.
From that felt horse in the bed.
Yeah, it's definitely sending a message. Definitely.
It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. Let's hit all the Joker quotes in the rest of this, okay? All the big ones.
Yeah, there you
go. The zoo confrontation meeting with Harvey. So, leading up to that. So what we just talked, okay, the Godfather scene, if you will. After that, I think Johnny Frost narrates about, it seems like Harvey then goes on like a violent spree, or is it Joker's crew, including Johnny, go on a violent spree, or both?
Yeah. I read it as Joker's crew going on the violent spree, just trying to draw Harvey out, trying to just force a meeting, because earlier in the story, Joker had tried to call him and Harvey wouldn't pick up the phone. And that's what led to Joker's like manic episode of just blowing up the
you would answer me.
Yeah. So that's how I read it, as he's just trying to draw him out. But that's another thing about this book, is it's not always very clear cut about, there could be different explanations for what you're seeing in the panels. And, you just got to go with it.
Clear cut. So when Joker takes off a glove at the zoo, that image.
Oh gosh.
This is the painted Bermejo image where Joker's holding up his hand and he's got the glass all through all the fingers. And
it hurts. It physically hurts to look at this page.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's almost one of his best images. And it's like one of the toughest to look at as well, because it's almost like if you get an image where something's shoved up a nose, that's like, you can feel that, seeing that image, or something in an eye or something, you can just feel like, and you see this and they kind of shudder a little bit from it. But that confrontation at the zoo, I find it interesting. Let's see. Yes, that's the big one. So I'm trying to think what my question was here. I'm an idiot. That's why I'm glad that you're on here to explain this book to me. I've read it a lot of times and I don't understand what's going on, Trey Jackson. What's Harvey's what's his angle here with bringing Frost into the equation?
Didn't he want Frost to take Joker out at an opportune moment? Like he was trying to convince him. Like that's his whole monologue to him. Like, look,
That's true.
dude, this
Mhm.
guy is going to murder
So he says
you.
he's gonna stand over you with bloody hands and laugh.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. You think you're moving up the ranks or whatever. He's just using you like he uses everyone else. And as
Mhm.
soon as you're not entertaining or whatever might occur to him, he's just gonna be done with you. So it's in your best interest and mine, but mainly yours, to just take him out if you get the opportunity. And I don't know, that was my read on what Harvey wanted Johnny to do. And that's why Joker felt the need to then do what he did after the confrontation with Harvey and say, now we're even.
That might be the most disturbing part.
Yeah.
Which is really it's a total, and I know this approach that Bermejo I think feels this way too, of with a lot of stuff. I know he's mentioned, I think he's mentioned Seven before, that he loves the movie Seven. And Seven, before I ever watched Seven, heard about this reputation of Seven just being so gory and messed up and gross and all that stuff, to where my first viewing, it was almost like disappointing because it'd been built up so much of like how much violence is shown in that movie. And so it's like, that's what my focus was first time I watched it. And then it was like watching a second time and everything, I'm like, man, like almost all the violence in this movie is implied. Yeah. So it's completely left up to you as the viewer, which then ends up becoming brilliant and also becomes a whole self-check on how messed up your brain is.
Yeah.
Not good for me, Trey. But I bring that up here because we don't see the action. We don't see anything like that with him in the car. We see the aftermath, but you can put it together. And it is gross and like, ugh. And Johnny at this point is also a defeated man. It's his ex-wife who we already were introduced to real quick in a flashback earlier in the story, but it's still,
you've already seen that she's trying to get away from him. She wants to move on. She knows that the road he's going down is a place that she wants no part of.
Yeah.
So it's just even more tragic to see her just roped back into that world.
Not of her own doing. She was trying to get away
from it.
Not
at all. Yeah.
The point in the story that I think, so there is, I'm trying to think now what, as I flip through. Oh, it's after his meeting with Harvey that Johnny Frost is standing. Yeah, he's standing.
He's
contemplating
standing up
suicide.
Yeah.
I think that's the point in the book where I feel like he knows, okay, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
And also I can't get out of this. And maybe realizing too that he is a little screwed. And then he does pull a point with the next page, even he tries to pull a Croc, in which Croc later, said, Joker says, "You're late." And Croc says to him, that a problem? And Joker's like, no, and it's fine. So then Johnny Frost tries to come walking in, and this is the Riddler meeting, and Joker says, you're late. And he's like, that a problem? And what happens? He gets kicked in the balls.
Yeah.
And then
another
gets
thing,
a gun to his head.
Well, another thing about this scene, like I was reading it and I was like, okay, so what if he had said, "Oh, I'm sorry for being late"? Then he gets kicked for, apologizing. There's no winning. There's no winning when you're around this guy.
No, unless you would have come up with some kind of, I don't know, clever answer or something. But yeah, I think most situation, whatever his response is going to not be good. So now we must bring in the Dark Knight himself, Trey, and how Batman plays. Go ahead.
Let me ask.
Okay.
Where did he first appear in this book?
I think he first appeared on the roof with the signal with Harvey. He's implied earlier but I don't remember seeing him at all until the roof. So go ahead. Do you?
I think it's more than implied. I'm looking at, what is this, page 5? It's the shot right after the shot of Joker walking out of the asylum gates. And on the next page, it alternates between Joker looking at something, and then the gargoyles in a shadow, and then Joker looking away.
You think Batman's on Arkham?
Do you see what I'm looking at? It's
No.
like the second panel on
Yeah.
that page. And
Oh,
the word is, have to admit, seeing him in person for the first time, Johnny's
oh my
narrating it.
God, Trey Jackson! I have never.
And you
No, I never saw that. I just thought that was unique in the sense of he's just flipping off, flipping
Yeah.
off Arkham.
And Johnny even says, like, oh, he's saluting the city. No, I don't think he's saluting the city. He's flipping off Batman. Batman was there on that gargoyle, and then lightning struck.
Man.
And he was on.
You're a brilliant man. No, I never thought of that.
I think Batman is.
I fully believe that that's him for sure.
Yeah. I think Batman kind of hovers over this story the entire time.
Yes.
There's another scene where it's not as like clear as that one is to me, but it's when Joker and Johnny are driving through the city, and Johnny's like, he says, "Look out the window, Johnny. Tell me what you see."
Mhm.
And Johnny's like, "I see lights."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Lights, huh?" Joker says,
Again,
"Those
there's
lights."
boring and predictable answer.
Yes.
Not entertaining. Okay, carry on.
He says, "Those lights, they're just pinpricks in the dark. He's out there." And I don't know what page this is, but you know the part of the book I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's out there. You know that, Johnny?
Yeah.
Right on the other side of the window.
I think that's second panel down on that page. It looks like there's a cape blowing up on the roof there.
Well, don't you know Batman is the shadows?
Yes, exactly.
So I think you're correct. Every shadow is Batman. But now I'm looking at that, and I actually was looking at that right when you started to say that. That's what you got me doing now. I'm a better man now because of you, Trey. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think Batman is kind of not just in the background, but like almost like hovering over the entire story. I forget where I read or heard this, but someone described Batman's presence in this book as almost like, righteous judgment, like, God looking down at someone, doing what the Joker is doing, and judgment is just inevitable for them.
It'll always make me question if that's the case, if he really is, because I just took this story as Batman can't catch him until he catches him.
Yeah.
So, okay, right there at Arkham, Joker's just getting in a car and going. So now even that doesn't change my feelings now that you just showed me this mind-blowing image that he was on Arkham watching him leave, because then he's out before Joker even leaves.
Yeah.
So in this shot too, this is him watching, in which then it's a meetup in the La Bella Roma restaurant, where Johnny Bang Bang goes bye-bye. I would almost feel like Batman needs to interfere at that point.
Yeah. I wondered that too.
So I also I don't know, because then as soon as when Harvey puts out the bat signal and tells him that, basically tells Batman of pleads with him, you have to stop him. Batman kicks it into high gear, then ends up at the hideout, because Joker is a free man when he leaves Arkham. He is. So I guess Batman has to find a time where he's guilty, he needs brought in. That maybe he doesn't find the evidence until this. It's just when he shows up, that's at the end of the story, and that's when I took along from it. There's the comfort in the rogues villains of having Batman around, actually.
Yeah.
because Batman can keep things in check. They can go crazy and all that stuff, but there's a little bit of a safety net because they know, oh, Batman's going to capture me. I'll go to Arkham. That's as bad as it's going to get, whatever.
Yeah.
Some of them, pending the story, feel remorseful and stuff after their actions. The Joker doesn't. And at this point, you have, one of the rogues like desperate of like, Batman, you need to get him. You need to stop him because like we are doomed at this point, in which Batman says, okay, and makes his rounds. It crashes into Joker's hideout where you see that he went in and got Harley, probably questioned her, then ended up at the meat and fish place where Croc and all of his dudes are strung up, which is just like, okay, Batman's there, because in the next panel is both Joker and Johnny Frost like standing in the doorway and looking out for him. And then it is all about, and like, that's where Johnny says too of, and then I got it when we heard the laugh, or was it a growl? Like, that's where he felt like he felt a little bit of like, oh shitness.
Yeah.
Because, Batman's here,
Mm-hmm.
which scares him like a shot of adrenaline for Joker. I feel like at that, he loves it.
He'd been hoping for it. Like, even if you go back to the second time he met up with Abner, Penguin, Abner is saying, someone is like really sore at you.
Mm-hmm.
And Joker says, really, that's wonderful news. I just live to make him sore. It's what drags me out of bed. And Abner's like, no, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Harvey. So, Joker has just been, he craves that. And that's another thing that they kind of hint at, show you in this book, that he craves that attention. He craves that reaction that he gets from the things that he does. That's part of why he does it. It's not just to entertain himself. It's to get that reaction and start those, chain reactions going.
Yeah. As Johnny starts laughing, Joker is like, shut up. And basically this is where he says, you have no charm at all, just obviousness, disappointing, obvious, shame on you. And then he looks up and he sees Batman now as in action, and then turns on Johnny Frost right away, holds him at gunpoint, is like threatening between him and Batman. I'm like, I'll shoot him, in which he does anyway. And then it's another Joker Batman battle, which is great. I want to ask you, the inking of the blood on Joker's face, I think that's Bermejo's. I think he did it in earlier pages too. It just really stands out here because it is kind of like black and white imagery, but it's a unique style, and he did it in Damned as well, of abandons the photorealistic look when it comes to the blood on the Joker's face, I don't know. I don't know if I like it or not. I just think it always stands out to me because it definitely feels like a massive separation in the art.
So it's like his face has got so many shadows on it in that image, right? And if you rendered the blood to have those same shadows, it's not quite as striking, I would think. Like, I'm trying to imagine how it would look.
That makes sense.
So that's that would be my first guess. I'm with you. It is kind of an interesting choice, but I'm also wondering, is that the best option? Like, if you had rendered it the same way you did everything else in the picture, how would it have looked? How would that have turned out?
Yeah. And I mean, and it's interesting because, I mean, look at the blood on Johnny's face where he's coming up the side, you see some blood, and it's, I mean, that's blood, but it looks like it's black. So I don't know. We'll never know because this is how it's presented. And then the two things I'm touching on, and it's the whole disease aspect. The final words, I see you, a disease, is Johnny Frost's monologue. One that has been around longer than Gotham, the city infected. A disease that's older than any city. Hell, it's probably the same disease that built the first one. There will always be a Joker because there's no cure for him. No cure at all. Just a Batman.
Yep.
How does that hit you when you read that?
Well, it's almost biblical.
Yeah.
There is something, it's like he's saying there is something about human beings that makes them capable of doing such evil to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just there. It's part of what it is to be a human being. So rather than hope for that to just one day be totally eradicated, because it's not going to happen, you have to just have something that stands in opposition to it, someone in this case that's willing to push back against it and never ever stop pushing back against it. That's my, that's how it hits me. How does it hit you?
I think it's appropriate. In just thinking that, and a lot of similar thoughts to what you'd said, of humans doing bad things to other humans is going to continue for the rest of time.
Yeah.
And it has happened since the beginning of time. And all we have are the people to stand up and try to intervene or lessen the damage done. In which this case is Batman.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know, that's a great punctuation on the relationship. It still just kind of blows my mind when we get new stories focusing on the Joker Batman relationship and that they end up being home runs.
Yeah.
For over 80 years now, the two have existed and fought each other. And they're still coming out with, so in that long span, this was just 14 years ago. And they hit on that relationship twice that year, The Dark Knight and Joker, in ways that were only solidified like at the core, like why these two characters work so much, why Joker is like the big guns to bring in a Batman story. And that they should definitely use him effectively and not just overdo it with him, in which I think a lot of people are kind of at the point of like, we can take a Joker break right now. I feel, and which would be fine with me, because I wouldn't want this story to have come out the same year that 4 other Joker Batman stories came out, and this was the last one or something, because it would have been overlooked. And then it's like, oh my gosh, you guys aren't paying attention, which I guess I didn't realize how big of a deal this book had become, how it got got so popular and so well received. Because I mean, even in 2008 is like, still learning about Facebook and telling people, Brian Lauer is watching The Dark Knight again. It was, my Facebook status all the time. I wasn't getting to measure how great, like how this book was becoming such a big deal. It was like way after the fact, and just from hearing from the creators that the book sold and kind of blew DC's mind of, well, we didn't know this was going to sell like it was. But the last point that I was going to hit on too is the final image of when it says just a Batman and you see a figure falling off the bridge. Pretend Damned has not been written yet.
No.
Who fell did you see when you read it?
I think if all you're looking at is this book, it makes more sense that Johnny is the one who fell, because he just is talking about how this battle is just ongoing. Like there's always a Joker, there has to be a Batman, and that's just this eternal struggle that will keep going. And it cost him his life, it throws him over the side of the bridge, but they keep going. That's why I thought it was Johnny. Still, I I understand that it's been officially confirmed not to be. But
Yeah.
if I'm just reading this book, that's still how I read it. What do you think?
I can't tell you how many times, eyeball up to the page, like, okay, which one is it though? Because it looks like it could be Joker's long little trench coat, or it does look like it could be a cape,
Well,
or maybe it's Johnny's coat. I don't know. Because I think at one point I thought it was Johnny. Then like he's getting up on the side of the bridge.
yeah, I thought it was Johnny jumping.
He's the closest. Yeah. He's done. He's out.
He just, yeah.
But then it's like there were parts of me. I never thought that it was Batman.
Yeah.
Because he's the hero. He will never die because he's Batman.
Never. Yeah, that never occurred to me to think it could be him.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It was always interesting. And I never got to sit and have the conversation with someone. So thanks, Trey.
Well, can I ask you something? Why?
Okay.
Why do you think that Batman's answer to Joker, because Joker asked him, why do you leave half your face uncovered? Batman's answer to him is to mock you. Well, what do you think he means by that?
Like, I don't know. I think to me is that Joker can, there's a bit of mocking if the Joker's like laughing and it's almost like, I'm gonna make you laugh, I'm gonna make you giggle, and then what's he getting in response is a straight face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To show, I think that can show to Joker of like, you're not getting me.
Yeah.
That's a very literal interpretation, I think. So sometimes I really am not that smart. So it is like, tell me what to think and I'll think that. And sometimes I don't have a better answer.
No,
to me, I think that's all I got.
No, I think that is a good answer. It's like, yeah, I'm intentionally showing you that I'm not hiding the fact that I'm not amused by you.
Yeah.
I'm just not. You're
okay.
All your desperate pleas for attention, do nothing for me.
Yeah.
I kind of read it because before that he says, Joker's like, you leave that little window, a glimpse of the perfection underneath. Not, you're not a monster. Like, you dress up like one, but then you leave us that little window that shows you're not. And I guess I kind of thought, okay, is this another instance where Joker and Batman are like the perfect antithesis of each other? Because for Joker, he's got this horrible scar right there, but the rest of him is dressed up like, someone you'd see at a kid's birthday party, a clown. He's dressed up, except he's really a monster underneath. But Batman's dressed up like a monster, except he's actually like a real human being underneath.
Yeah.
So it's like Joker, and maybe I'm thinking too much of, being too influenced by Ledger's take in The Dark Knight, but Joker really genuinely believes that we're all monsters just pretending to be human beings to each other. And here's Batman, who's pretending to be a monster who actually is a human being. It's kind of like a direct refutation of that.
That's why their relationship is so rich.
Yeah, it is.
I love the total opposition.
Yeah,
and always clashing. I just think it's poetic.
Yeah,
when that's what they're trying, when they're going, the storytellers are striving for the core of the two. Like, chef's kiss. It's always, I think it's always great. And that, like, by looking, I don't say like looking past, but maybe that's why I can say like, I like this book a lot. And someone, on the surface could say, why do you like a book that is like very violent, very dirty, grimy, has a bunch of, you're following a guy that you cannot root for, told through the perspective of another guy you can't root for. There's not much to root for here. I think it's because how they do wrap it up,
Yeah.
how it does go and telling you and showing you you shouldn't be rooting for someone like this.
Mhm.
Like, here's a guy who was, and look at, he got in close and he realized I shouldn't be rooting for this. And then at the end is, you know, capped. There you go. I don't know. It's capped
Yeah.
with that, you know, that punch of the Batman Joker clashing, that I just think that's a main source of like why I like the book so much. I guess that's kind of like my last thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to, and do you have any final words on the story? Anything?
I mean, we could obviously keep going.
We
there's
could.
there's all these little details and things
Yeah.
to point out. Next watch party, we'll have to.
There you go.
So there you go.
Of a Joker session.
Yeah, there we go.
Everybody bring your makeup.
No, yeah, I'm in the same boat. This book is, I really, really appreciate it, and I really like how they present that just eternal struggle between
Yeah.
these two characters and what they represent. As harsh and tough as it is to get through, it is so on purpose, and I can respect and even admire that, and I do. So yeah, it's be careful, who you're around when you're reading it. don't let any young impressionable people happen upon you.
No.
But yeah, definitely good story. Another showcase for fantastic artwork.
Yeah.
Glad
Really,
to talk about it.
Understandably so, really elevated Bermejo in the eyes of comic book readers.
Mhm.
I think we were already getting enough of a taste of Azzarello to know that he is a really good writer at this point. And you were either, I feel like, in on him or you weren't at that point, because he does a lot of, very gritty crime stories and stuff that he had before this. And then, but yeah, Bermejo really elevated himself of like, no, this guy is good.
Mhm.
Okay, people, give him his own Christmas story. Okay, let him illustrate it and write it himself.
Yeah.
I do have to ask you a couple favorites.
Yeah.
You know they're coming.
Yeah.
So here
absolutely.
we go. You're prepared. What's your favorite part of Joker?
My favorite part, I guess I would say
no judgment here if it's a bad part.
No. I mean, obviously, the fight at the bridge at the end with Batman is where it all comes together, and really, really ties together the story to that point, but also the themes that I think they were going for. I think they put it all together really well right there.
Mm-hmm.
I did, I said earlier, I liked the look of Riddler in this book. I liked that he was really the only other rogue that interacted with Joker that wasn't afraid of him.
Yeah.
That just kind of didn't stand up to him, but just wasn't intimidated either.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that part. Yeah, but I mean, the bridge fight at the end, that's where it all really comes together.
I think that's it for me too. There are very impactful parts throughout the story, but as far as, go to a part that you love, in this book, that's what I'd flip to right away.
Yeah.
In both the art, the fight, and then the dialogue / monologue, that's being said at that point too. I think that's my highlight. How about a favorite panel?
I'm going to go with the full page on page 4, where he's leaving the asylum, walking through the gates.
Oh, man.
That's such an iconic image. I love the look of Arkham in the background there. Man, that's a painting right there.
Yeah. There's that's one that could be sold as a poster.
Yeah.
Maybe has been. I haven't seen it. Just for the sake of more discussion, I'll whisper that's my pick too. But I'm gonna say that my pick, I I don't know, because I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff. The impactful one of the glass in the fingers, that's done in the photorealistic look, and that's like simple. But the first panel of the bat signal in the sky,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that looks to me the Batman now.
Yeah.
That looks cool. The panel of Batman when he says, to mock you. I just really like that's a close up, very shadowy Batman. Very impactful because you don't get to see his eyes. But I think that I would say I really love the Joker Harley.
Yeah, where
At the
he's
Grin and Bear It, and he's like,
asking
so
who wants
who
to come
here?
along.
Yeah, who wants to help me take it back? I don't know. That's a good image.
Yeah.
And a book full of a lot of good images.
Hmm.
Would you like to see an animated adaptation of this book?
No, I would not.
All right. Don't beat around the bush, okay?
It's nothing against the book, obviously. I think you've talked about this before with other people that are, talking about Bermejo art. I don't think that you could translate his stuff to animation very well without losing a lot of what makes it really distinctive.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier. He's got such a good eye for shadow and texture on faces and clothes where the motion is all implied. And if you try to put that in a picture and move it around the screen, you have to track where all those shadows go, and you have to actually create all that motion so the viewer's not doing it in their mind anymore. And I just don't know that you could do that and it be as effective. So the art style alone, I don't know that it would translate very well unless they went a super, super expensive route and did something like a rotoscoping. Did you ever see a movie years ago called A Scanner Darkly?
No, but I know what movie you're talking about because it had such an interesting look to it.
Yeah, I think maybe they could pull off a Bermejo inspired art style that way, but that would be way too expensive for what they're doing right now, I think.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't know that it would work. That's just the only way I think you would even try. So mainly to not lose the distinctiveness in the art style, I don't know that I'd want to see an animated adaptation unless they just really swung for the fences. Also, as we've said, the story is very harsh and difficult. It would be kind of a depressing hour and a half, 2 hour experience. I think it would be good. I think it could be done well, but I just
think the Joker movie itself, the live action one of or maybe you don't agree. I mean, it was received well, but I don't know anybody who's just kind of hey, family, movie night, let's watch Joker. It's not a crowd pleaser.
if you'll permit me, that movie was incredibly well done, and I really don't have a desire to see it again.
Sure.
And I think it's part of the intention. But yeah, I don't have a desire to see that again. I do have a desire to read this book from time to time.
There you go.
I could skip back and forth between, some of the cool parts. So.
It kind of blows my mind though. So Netflix, even though there were reports that they were scaling back their animation department or something, Netflix has a wide variety in animation and stuff that they create themselves. So it kind of does blow my mind that Warner Brothers animation doesn't do that for the direct to video stuff. I like the DC animated movies, most of them, and I've watched most of them. Hell, there might just be one that I haven't seen before, and there have been, I know creators have said this too, they weren't talking bad. It was almost like they felt bad for saying it because I know that there are people who work in that department that work hard on on the movies that are made.
Yeah.
And it's not a slant on them. But much like visually, this book is such a standout. I don't think you should attempt to do it animated unless you're going for something that's a standout.
Yeah.
I don't know animation budgets. I don't know how you can do something different than what you're doing and have it be the same cost. I have no clue on any of that stuff, but I don't disagree with that either. There are certain books that stand out. So, I mean, hell, Bermejo's work, Joker, Damned, Noel, Morrison and McKean's Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
I don't want those movies fitting into the style they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Because they are very, like, all of them are the same style and they're different stories. And I love The Long Halloween parts 1 and 2. At first, yes, I was kind of like, oh, okay, that doesn't resemble Tim Sale's art all that much, but that's fine. I hope the story is good. And then I loved the movie.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah. So, I mean, relating that to Joker itself, I don't think I would want to see it done unless the look of it could be striking and different than what they're doing.
Yeah. I know that I don't know much about animation budgets and production either. I do know that hand-drawn animation is pretty much a thing of the past at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it would take that level of craftsmanship to even try. So if you're not going to do that, then don't do some cheap imitation of it. Because for this book, the art is the highlight. It's the standout.
It is.
I mean, not to like,
not to belittle Azzarello or anything.
Yeah, not to belittle the story at all, but the art is what really stands out to you.
For sure.
And if you're not going to make that the standout of an adaptation, then don't bother with it.
You just said with hand drawn, and it just instantly made me think of like 80s animation.
Yeah.
I don't know how expensive that would be to try and pull off these days, but it was hand drawn stuff, a lot of it. Yeah. And there's such a cool, good throwback. What is it? The Adventures of the Gummy Bears. It's on Disney Plus.
Oh gosh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It feels so like comforting to go back to that because there's something about that 80s style. Now it's hilarious that that's what I use as an example of do that style for Joker, Joker's just popping off gummy bears left and right, and whatever. But there's something, a gritty, like this could totally fit in like a grimy 80s vibe and look. And like, guys, tell me that's way out of the question budget wise. And it's hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but I'm with you. That's throwing back to that style.
Yeah.
There's such an authenticity to it that is hard to replicate when it's mostly CGI these days.
We have just put The Adventures of the Gummy Bears on a pedestal, an unreachable pedestal here on this show. Peak animation was Gummy Bears on Disney Plus. The Batman Book Club is not sponsored by Disney or any. I don't know the legal terms there.
if we weren't recording, I would sing the song right now.
Yeah, I can't. I cannot afford a lawsuit. Okay, please don't. Trey, that's my final question for you, my friend. I wanna thank you, one, for saving the day back in March. Down in Texas, but then also for accepting the invite. And I know it took a few months to make it happen, but I appreciate you choosing this book. Any book would have been good, but had a good conversation. So do you have anything at all that you want to mention, plug away, anything?
I appreciate being able to come on. Thank you for the invite. I was glad to chauffeur you guys around. That was a treat. That really was. And I love the show. Glad to be part of it on this end. I've never talked this much in a library, but we are in the Batman library.
We are.
But I'm talking to the librarian. So I don't feel like I'm breaking any rules. Let's see. Plugs. You can follow me on Twitter if that suits you. Trey Jackson 619. I'm also hanging around in the Batman on Film Facebook group and the Straight Outta Gotham group. I've written a couple of op-eds and features for Batman on Film.
Yeah.
I even wrote some back in the day. I think they're up on Superman on Film now, maybe. I'll have to check with Mr. MFR on that. But yeah, just come find me either on Twitter or in those Facebook groups, and we'll chat. We'll talk about Joker, and then we'll have to talk about gummy bears to balance it out.
Yeah. Finally, I've been waiting 120 episodes. It's like, when is the appropriate time to bring in the gummy bears? And we got it. Thank you. You're a magical man, Trey Jackson.
Yeah.
If you want to follow the Batman Book Club, you can do that on Twitter and Instagram at the Batman VC for upcoming episodes, new episodes, sometimes even some giveaways. If you would like to get some more content, subscribe to the Batman Book Club YouTube channel, where I'm starting to put up more consistent things up there, specifically The Road to No Man's Land with Peter R. Vera, where we're exploring that massive omnibus. We're having a great time. Those are dropping once a month. Check that out. As well as semi-recently, I did a from page to screen with Garrett Grev on the Batman Ninja Turtles movie. So yeah, check out the YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments, you can write in. You can email the batmanbc@gmail.com. Got a very, very nice email recently that I'll share some parts of it upcoming, because the gentleman brought up some pretty good points as well. If you want to support the show, there's a variety of ways you can do it. Like I said at the top of the show, patreon.com/thebatmanbc. You can support the show with merchandise from TeePublic. Go to teepublic.com, type in TBBC as in the Batman Book Club. But if you want to support the show and you don't want to spend any money at all, that's 100% A-okay. Just rate and review the show. Wherever you listen to the show, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or any of those, just rate and review the show, because the more reviews the show gets, the more it helps spread the word. And as Trey and I both know, the word is panic. So for Trey Jackson, I am Ryan Lauer. And until next time, read my guys.